Hi everyone, welcome to Life Tips by Ning. In today's video, I'm sharing the explanation for the 28th hexagram in I-Ching called Great Access. So, Great Access, the meaning is actually losing the harmonious balance between yin and yang. Is over-indexed to the yang side, meaning that if something is so rigid and not flexible, it's easily breakable. Or like if you fill a cup too full of water, it will spill over. So that's kind of the general image of this hexagram. There are two angles to support its definition. The first one is its relationship with the prior hexagram nourishment, the number 27. If you compare the image of the two, so keep each line's position the same, the yin and yang are exact opposite. So that means the meanings are opposite from each other. And we know that nourishment, the key word is moderation. Don't overdo something. And because the yin and yang are flipping over, so the great access, based on the image, it means it's over-index, overdoing, it's too rigid, it's too aggressive, and it's lacking that yin's characteristics of softness, introversion, listening respectfully, like that type of quality is missing. And another angle of looking at it is its own hexagram image. If you think about it, it's actually a thickened water image because the water triagram, it's two yin lines encompassing with a yang line inside. So if you enlarge that triagram, you just pretty much thicken the middle yang line with enlarged four yang lines. So, and we know that water triagram means it's something challenging, difficulty, like a roadblock. So overall, this great access, because of the over-index of this yang, it will result in a challenging and difficult situation, like a crisis almost. So in that case, what should you do? That's the main point and wisdom of this 28th hexagram. So by dissecting this, right, the internal triagram is wind. Wind is very soft. It kind of goes with the flow, and it penetrates into different objects. So it's that softness of flexibility, adaptability. And the upper triagram is lake. It brings you joy. It's very calm, kind of glittering under the sun. It's very joyful and non-confrontational. So following the spirit of both the outside and inside triagram, it gives us the wisdom that in an extreme access situation where there's too much yang energy, you should add more ingredients of the yin, like the wind, like the lake, the softness, the flexibility, to kind of tone it back so that you can reduce your suffering in a crisis and difficult situation. And if you look at individual lines, it's the same thing. If the line is able to introduce more like that balancing yin energy, the result will be positive. However, if it's too much yang and is stuck in that stage, it will result in a very disastrous or catastrophe result. Starting with the first line, this is a yin line in the beginning stage. The description says, like in the ancient praying ceremony, it's like the white colored soft grass kind of laying down on the ground as a mat before you do additional steps. Even though by itself is kind of insignificant, it's not doing a lot, but it's showing your respect, it's showing your kind of willingness to follow, to your reverence. Because of that softness, and you can kind of balancing the whole overall great access connotation, that will avoid and prevent a lot of blame and fault or difficult situation. So it's still encouraging you to take a humility, respectful type of approach to the situation. The second line, even though it's a yang line, The blessing is in the second position, which is the middle way, the yin position. So it kind of have that help from the positional power to tone down the yang a little bit. It's like a rotten tree. Finally, after spring, is growing new sprouts. So it's signifying that after a long time of decay, failure, you suddenly run into this turning point of revival, success. So it's a fairly positive one, but it takes an unconventional move because normally old trees after decay it will not survive, right? So it takes you a bold move, but it's emphasizing that yin approach, that soft approach, and you'll be able to inject a new life force into something and turn it around. So this is a fairly positive one. However, the third one is not so much because it's a yin one in the third it's a yang line in the third yang position. There's no help from the yin energy. So it's like a beam supporting the house. Like if you think about it, it should be evenly allocating force onto the beam. However, this beam, based on the image, the middle part is too rigid and strong. The beginning and ending point or yin lines are too soft, so you don't have that support from other people. You're taking on too much yourself, and eventually, because you're not able to kind of delicate and even out the heavy burden across, and you're taking on too much yourself, you're gonna snap and break. So that's a very bad result, and the reason for the negative collapse or catastrophe is because you're so stuck in your own way, you're not listening to other people, or you don't want other people's support and help. And because of that arrogance and being so rigid, you will bring into a collapse situation. The fourth one is a yang line in a even position. So same concept of the second one. It has that yin's balancing energy, so that even though it's still kind of in the middle, the same as that beam in the middle part, shouldering a lot of heavy burden, but the difference is the fourth one is smart enough to connect with the yin line, the humility, the respectful, the softness approach, so that because he's adaptable, he's able to survive and reinforce and keep that beam strong, versus this one, because you're not adaptable, you're gonna snap. So the fourth one, in contrast, is a fairly neutral result, because the key is he's able to learn the softness, the flexibility from its corresponding line, the first one. Moving to the fifth one, this is kind of the ending stage of that concentration of a yang energy. So it says it's kind of an old tree, but unlike the second line, which is really introducing new life, is sprouting new roots and branches. This one is kind of like a flashing flower. It's in the moment, it's not sustainable. After flowering, quickly it will fall off and go back to its dead stage. So if you land on the fifth line, it's meaning you had a very glorious and successful past, but now it's nearing the ending stage of something, even though it's like a last moment superficial revival, but it's lacking substance and support, and the flower will fall off very quickly and you will go back to that kind of decaying stage. And last but not least is this yin line. It's like, after the fifth one, right, you're already paying the price of this great access, and no matter how much you trying to influence with your own will and action, the overall context is bad. You're kind of like crossing a river and you're getting swirled. There's nowhere to go. You're getting stuck, because that's a natural transition of this result of great access. So at that point, the water already passed your head. The whole situation is super dangerous and very risky, pretty much indicating you can't beat the general trend. It's very kind of, you have the failure ahead. What's your chance of winning is super super slim. But guess what? You don't give up in this type of a crisis moment. You know it's out of your control, but you're still not giving up. You're still trying your darn best to fight the current, even though you know you'll probably fail in the end. So that's a very honorable and righteous attempt. You're doing the right thing, even though you're in a kind of a negative result because of the great access or over index behavior in the past. So this one is still a fairly negative one because at that point you miss kind of the right time to self-correct. Now it's too late. So you have to kind of fight the overall current and do the best you can, even though the result will be likely to be a failed attempt. So that's the overall explanation of the 28th hexagram great access. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.